The Mercedes-Benz C63 AMG is quite simply one of the most popular cars on the internet. A quick YouTube search will find you countless videos with six-figure view numbers and hundreds of enthusiastic comments below them. But why the hell go petrolheads crazy when they see this compact executive car?
Well, the answer is quite simple. It's German and it has a very, very strong accent. In 2009, former AMG boss Mornhinweg said that the horsepower war is over. And you know what? Nobody in Affalterbach has listened to him. Well, if you have just a little bit of petrol running through your veins, I'm absolutely sure that the sound of this engine will tell you everything you need to know about the C63 AMG. But since this here isn't actually a regular C63 AMG, if you can call any C63 regular, I'm afraid I have to interrupt the sound and give you a few specs about this Edition 507 here, which will be the last version of this car before Mercedes is replacing it with a brand new C-Class and eventually an AMG version of this one, So allow me to have a quick look under the bonnet to give you a few specs and informations about the engine that creates this lovely, lovely sound.
Like the standard car, the 507 features a hand-built, naturally aspirated 6208cc V8 engine. For this final edition, AMG used their learnings from the limited supply Black Series and parts from the SLS AMG supercar, such as forged pistons, connecting rods and a lightweight crankshaft. The reduced mass of these components makes the engine rev up even faster and more responsive. The pistons and crank drive have been enforced to withstand the higher combustion pressure, giving the Edition 507 a total output of 610 Nm and 507 horsepower. What makes this car feel so much faster for me than its rivals, the BMW M3 or Audi RS4, is the fact that it makes up to 50% more torque at the same RPM level than those two other cars. And that's really what you feel on the road as a normal driver, the torque and not just the raw horsepower, especially when it's only available at very high RPMs close to the red line. I have to say, AMGs for me feel like they are built by people who love driving. And the reason for that is that I get into this car and I don't feel the need to set up anything. In fact, especially in this class, you often have cars that have settings for everything, from the suspension to the transmission, sometimes even the steering. And I personally often end up with a compromise when I have all these different options, I don't want to get into a car and have the feeling like I need to fly an airplane, I just want to start driving and have a car that feels good to me. In fact, that's really what makes this car stand out for me personally. That I can get into this car, have a lovely automatic transmission which has 4 different settings: Comfort, Sport, Sport Plus and Manual mode. I personally only use the Comfort mode most of the time when I was driving in town or just cruising. When I wanted to drive a little bit spirited, I use the Manual mode. And what I really like about this transmission is the fact that it has a slightly mechanical feel to it in comparison to all these modern twin clutch transmissions, which are much more responsive and feel faster, of course, but I don't care about that, because at low speeds this transmission here just feels less hectic and more comfortable, and it really suits this kind of car. And when I'm shifting it on the pedals, yes, there's a little bit lag, but it does have a slightly mechanical feel to it, and I really like that. So coming back to my topic from the beginning, that I don't have to set up anything in this car to have a car that to me feels absolutely perfect. It really does feel like the boys at AMG gave this car a lot of testing, a decent amount of time to take care to get a car that has a setup that works in most driving situations. And where I drove it, most of the time I'm driving it on twisty German B roads, and on the Autobahn it just felt perfect to me. Agile, very stable, even at high speeds, doing over 280 kilometers per hour on the Autobahn. It just felt lovely to me. And that's really what stands out about this car. It feels like it is built by people who love driving, who take care and really put a lot of effort into development.
The idea of putting massive engines into small practical cars is almost as old as the automobile itself. Yes, the big V8 absolutely dominates the 507 with pure violence, but what makes this car so fascinating for me is not just raw power. In essence, this is still a Mercedes. Comfortable, luxurious and flawless. Combine that with the driving characteristics and silly performance of the C63 and you end up with a car that makes you want to get up very early on a Sunday so that you can have the road for yourself and just go for a drive for the sake of fun.
You know, while I'm driving this car here in town, I have the time to reflect a little bit on this car and to come up with my verdict. And I really love this car, but I do understand why companies like Mercedes and others can't build these big naturally aspirated V8 engine cars anymore, because the fuel economy of this car here is just absolutely bad. I have a 60-liter tank and I have a fuel range of about 300 kilometers when I'm driving this car spirited, you know, so you really struggle to get this car under 17 liters. Maybe if you drive it like a priest and never go higher than 2,500 RPM, you can get it into the 14s, but I really couldn't. And for that reason, companies like Mercedes have to come up with new technologies, twin turbocharged engines, start-stop systems, maybe even cylinder deactivation, which I had in the SLK 55 last year, and that really works, you know. But for petrolheads and enthusiasts like me, it's really a shame that these engines will be gone. And I think if you have the money to buy this car, and if you are willing to spend a decent amount of money on petrol, this here is a future classic, I'm absolutely sure. Because there won't be cars like this one here anymore. And as a complete package, apart from the fuel economy, it is just a brilliant car to drive. And I absolutely love it.